Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to have Anthony Chang. Anthony, I'm going to be interviewing you for a few insights in a moment. But before
Okay.
I do that, if I could let my audience know that you're a great colleague of mine. I'm very inspired by you as a founder of AI Med, where we came together. And to remind people, you're a pediatric cardiologist, you're Chief Intelligence Officer at CHOC. And actually, as far as I'm concerned, you're one of our AI Med gurus that's really leading the way for clinical intelligence. Would that
Thank
be
you.
a right way to introduce you?
Well, I'm a convener of smart people, so and I learn from
Well,
them.
well, right now we need a lot of smart people. We've had a tsunami that we've had to deal with COVID-19. We've been
Yep.
put to the test. And what are some of your initial observations of how we've performed, Anthony?
Well, I in a write-up for the AI Med magazine, I gave each country a grade. So let's not go into the political ramifications of the grading, but most
Yeah,
of the countries have not done well, and I think it's because we were lax and didn't pay attention to important tenets of public and global health, and we were almost over relying on science and technology and not the execution of it. So I think the countries that are suffering the most did not have a very efficient and effective public health system to overcome an epidemic, and allowed it to sort of escalate into higher levels of deaths and suffering. And I think some of the countries are sort of putting into practice mitigation and suppression strategies that's basically slowing the spread. But it's going to be a long journey. I would say we're in the third mile of a marathon right now.
absolutely. And this is a marathon, not a sprint. We know that. Some of the things here must be really difficult for you, Anthony, because you're so aware of the great potential of human beings in innovating with technology. And yet here we are not utilizing half the tools or half the people that have most of the solutions. Is there some particular disappointments? Is there some particular, things that really get under your skin?
Well, I also have a global health background, so reflecting
Right.
back the days that I used to teach global health, I know one of the principles in global health is you want to immediately contain an infection as much as and as fast as possible, because without containment, which I call in war terms, it's kind of like a skirmish that between
Yep.
two countries at the border, and you want to contain or control that skirmish before it escalates into a full-blown war. So you spend a lot of effort trying to contain the possibility of a war or decrease the likelihood of war, and we allow a war to happen. So now that we're in a full-blown war, I do feel like, as we discussed earlier, not having the public health infrastructure is like going to war with weapons of technology, but without armor. And on the other hand, you don't want to go to war without armor either, because at best you're going to preserve your life, and that's about it. So I think the coupling between public health measures as well as technological advances, and that includes artificial intelligence, telemedicine, and includes tracking devices that are now more commonly seen, are all part of the technology portfolio that we have. So I think that the coupling is very important.
So let me ask you about tracking technologies and human behavior. Do you think we will be able to guide human behavior in a more sensible way to integrate with technology now? Is this a great time to allow us to safely see the value of technology?
I think so. I think what you're saying is the unusual coming together of industrial titans that have been at odds with each other, and I think it's humans against the viruses. So humans are foregoing their previous relationships that may not be favorable and coming to work together. So I think I have great faith and trust in humans in terms of coming together. And I do think we need to raise our expectation. I feel like in a way we prematurely are lowering our expectation. And personally, I don't like the terms, you know, let the virus determine the timeline or the new normal. That's one of my least favorite terms, the new normal. There's nothing good about the new normal. We need to go back to normal. You know, if you think about what we miss most, we miss handshakes, hugs, we miss
We do.
large gatherings like you and I have been, where you feel the energy of the audience and inspiring you to the next meeting. We need to have all of that back, and the viruses have held those hostage the last few months, and we need to do everything to raise the expectation, not to say, well, the new normal is going to be this, and that's the way it's going to be. Well, let's find ways to overcome the obstacles that we need to overcome to get to the old normal, which is what I like. So the new is actually the new abnormal, which is what no one wants.
It's a great way to think about it.
We need to go back to the old normal. Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, you've just reminded me that COVID-19 has made us polarize so that the good things have got better and the worst things have got much worse, right?
That's correct.
Now, within that, are there some saving graces? I mean, I'll give you an example. It took us 4 years before the Apple Watch could be considered okay as a medical technological device for the ECG, right? Now, I guess it will take us 4 days if it's got the right app technology within it to make it a tracking device, right?
Yeah.
Is that a saving grace? Is that a silver lining?
Yes, I think you know, if you look at the conventional way of innovation as a line that's linear, we've now bent that into a more exponential form because the virus is exponential. How can you fight a virus with a curve like this? You got to bend the curve. So we talk about flattening the curve, but for innovation, we want to bend the curve. But I don't think when we have totally neutralized the virus in this pandemic, at some point, we're going to just keep going in an exponential curve. That would be wishful thinking. But I do think that it's going to be very hard to go back to the linear trajectory that we were before.
You've just reminded me of the Gartner curve that we used to all laugh at, right? And in fact, I'm thinking about the Gartner hypothesis.
I like that.
And it's exactly the coronavirus curve. It's exactly that trajectory, right? The Gartner hypothesis for technology innovation. In fact, coronavirus is probably the most innovative challenge we've had to face, right?
Correct. So I do think we're on the hype cycle, right? We're up on that slope. And then when we, and you're already starting to see this, right? People are getting a little bit more complacent. They think it's, you know, bad, but could be worse. And we're already coming down that cycle. But hopefully we'll get back to, you know, the compromise of changing our previous paradigm for the new paradigm.
Yep. So I'm going to ask you one last question, if that's okay, Anthony. To me, you're one of the most holistic and authentically balanced people that I love to be around in terms of inspiration and sharing. Okay.
Thank you.
This social separation that it's created, how are you coping with that? I mean, are you finding that okay? Because I find it quite hard coming home and knowing whether to be immediately with my family or to go in the shower, right?
Yes.
I'm finding that tough. At the hospital, I have to be one thing amongst everybody and not care if we can't actually physically distance. And at home, I have to have this major distancing. How are you finding that?
Very difficult, like most people I know. I think, first of all, social distancing is yet another term that I don't like, because we're not really socially distancing, we're physically distancing, but we're still social creatures. Maybe viruses are too, we don't know, but I promise you, humans are more social than viruses. And we should not settle for the elbow bump, which I think is kind of awkward. And it's awkward. And by the way, we cough right into the elbow supposedly, or sneeze into it. So it's not the safest thing anyway. But we need to go back to the handshake, the hugs, and the group gatherings, because that's who we are. We should not change our DNA for an RNA virus.
I completely support you on that. So I've called it social cohesion, physical distancing, and only if necessary, right? But I think on that point, that would be a really nice place to stop. It's been a great challenge. It's been wonderful to have you, and I'd really like to be able to talk to you again very shortly. Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you, Ameet.